My daughter tells me that her powerful boyfriend's family doesn't want me at the wedding because I'm not on their level, but I vent with a post, and now all the family's dirty laundry is being aired out. Hello everyone, I'm 50 years old, and I have a daughter named Megan, who is 26. She's supposed to marry her fiancé, Reggie, in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately for me, Reggie comes from a very influential family, and they believe I don't belong at their wedding, which has even turned my daughter against me. I raised Megan completely on my own since she was about 10 years old because my husband died in a car accident. I've had a couple of relationships in the last 16 years after my husband's death. My main goal was always to ensure that Megan received the best of everything and that I could give her the life that my husband would have wanted. I thought I had done a good job raising her alone, but now I'm not so sure. A few days ago, she came to my house and told me that she had had a conversation with the family, and they all thought it would be best if I stayed out of the wedding. Reggie comes from a pretty wealthy business family, and they own one of the largest public relations agencies in the country, so naturally, they deal with many important industry personalities. When Megan visited me last, she told me that after speaking with her fiancé and his family, they all thought that I simply wouldn't fit in with the rest of them. It wouldn't just be uncomfortable for everyone else, but most of all, it would be uncomfortable for me. So, keeping that in mind, they had decided they would have a private ceremony just for the family later. But at this wedding, which everyone was invited to, I would not be present because someone like me simply wouldn't fit in at the real wedding. And yes, I use that word, even though they're certainly not marrying into royalty. I couldn't understand what that meant because it's not like I'm an uncivilized gorilla who doesn't know how to behave in public and would embarrass them. So I knew it had to do with my financial situation. I guess Reggie's parents probably wanted him to marry someone who belonged to the same economic level, and they were already disappointed enough that he had chosen Megan, since she definitely didn't belong to the same kind of financial environment. They had somehow accepted that, but I guess they just weren't ready to accept that they would also be associated with me after the marriage. I should have guessed this would happen from the beginning. I told my daughter that maybe I wasn't as well off as they were, but I made the best of my situation and raised her completely alone. So I'd say I'm as good as they are. Although I don't own a big business, I'm content with what I have. I've been a real estate agent most of my life, and I've made a decent amount of money throughout my life, and I still have a couple of good years ahead of me, so I have no intention of stopping. I told her that she should let them know in case that was embarrassing to them. I told Megan that I was a hardworking person and could see that she, her fiancé, and his family didn't respect me just because I didn't make as much money as they did. Suddenly, just because I wasn't as rich as her fiancé and his family, even my own daughter refused to acknowledge my existence at her wedding. I was heartbroken, but I wasn't going to give up my dignity. So I told her I wouldn't attend the wedding if that was what she wanted. She tried to talk to me after that and explained that it wasn't something personal, but I had no interest in listening to her and told her to leave because I just didn't want to talk to her anymore. It became very clear to me that in the 3 years Megan had been dating Reggie, she had been completely brainwashed by him and his family, and now she believed money was everything. I was very disappointed in her, so I did something that, in retrospect, I'm not sure was the right move. Anyway, the day she visited me to tell me I wouldn't be invited to the wedding, I was very upset and disturbed and couldn't do anything that day. But the next morning, when I woke up, I decided I had to do something. I couldn't let this kind of disrespect go unanswered. I decided to go online and post about what had happened on Facebook. I didn't spare any details and spoke quite freely about what had happened and how I felt in this situation. At that moment, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, and I still don't think I made a grave mistake. But maybe I shouldn't have acted so hastily. Anyway, after making the post, I didn't expect anything to happen, but I had tagged Reggie and his family members in the post. Now, his family is quite well known, so when people saw that post, of course, they started talking, because no one expected them to act this way toward the mother of the girl their son was going to marry. After posting, I decided to go about my day as usual. A couple of hours later, I started receiving multiple messages and phone calls from Megan's future father-in-law. He was begging me to delete the post and undo all the damage I had caused to their reputation, because people had started messaging them to express their disappointment. I know people didn't expect them to be so elitist. I only answered one of his calls, and before I could say anything, he started begging me to take down the post. Since he owns a public relations firm, his reputation is very important to him, and his entire business would collapse if word got out that he had been treating people this way. But after listening to him, I just didn't say anything and hung up. However, he kept sending me messages. Some people even said they wouldn't attend the wedding because they wanted to show their support for me that way. When I opened Facebook, I saw that I had a ton of really supportive comments from many people I didn't even know. I really didn't expect such a reaction, and that kind of validated my feeling. So, I contacted Reggie's father and told him I wasn't going to take down the post because he and his family had brainwashed my daughter and insulted me by saying I wouldn't be invited to their wedding because they didn't think I belonged there. So now, someone like me was going to show them their place. After that, I blocked the numbers he had been trying to contact me from, and I didn't feel a bit sorry for him. But then Megan called me, and she was sobbing on the other end of the line. No matter how angry I am with her, I'm still her mother, and I started to feel terrible for how violently she was crying. I could tell she was really distressed, and despite myself, I couldn't help but try to calm her down and comfort her. She told me she knew I was disappointed in her, and that what she did wasn't right. But she was in a very difficult situation with Reggie and his family. She thought I would understand. She said Reggie's family had insisted on not inviting me to the ceremony, and that's why she had been cornered. But still, being my daughter, I expected her to fight for me, and it upset me that she had given up so easily. Anyway, after a point, she told me that now what was done, and the least I could do was take down that post, because it had caused a lot of problems in the family. Even though I was the one who did it, everyone was pointing fingers at her. She tried to reason with me and said this pursuit of power would eventually cost her her relationship, and as her mother, surely I would want to forgive her for her mistakes and not keep taking my anger out on her, knowing the kind of difficult situation she was in. At that moment, I had to make a decision. I decided that I wasn't going to take down the post because I was really hurt. I deserved to tell my side of the story so that Reggie and his family knew they couldn't treat people like trash and get away with it. I tried to explain that to my daughter, but Megan started crying even more and said she was exhausted from having to keep up this balancing act all the time. On one side, she had Reggie and his family, and on the other side, she had me. She obviously wanted to value everyone equally. But no matter how hard she tried, it just wasn't working, and she was tired of it. Then she told me I was ruining her relationship just because I wanted revenge on Reggie's parents. She had nothing more to say to me and hung up. Now I feel really bad. I'm not sure if I should delete that post or not. So I'm here to ask you all. Am I the bad person for making a post that exposed my daughter's fiancé's family for being elitist? Edit. Well, it seems that a lot of people think I didn't tell all the details in my original post and don't exactly understand why Reggie's parents don't like me. So I'll try to be as clear as possible in this edit and also try to provide a bit more context so people can come to a conclusion. Basically, since his parents are quite well off and very aware of social classes, they never really liked me because I don't belong to the same tax bracket. To clarify, as I mentioned in my original post, it's not that I can't afford anything, but I live a life like most normal people. I guess they just can't stand the fact that despite being significantly below them financially, I still don't treat them like they're something special. Megan had told me that at the beginning of their relationship, Reggie's parents didn't even want her and thought she was a gold digger. But eventually, she broke the ice with them, so I already had an idea of what kind of people they were. However, When we first met, I tried to be as cordial as possible and be my usual friendly self. But I guess they didn't like that because afterward, Megan told me that Reggie's parents had told her that I was a bit too frank for their liking. They thought I didn't know how to behave among people of their social class. I thought that was a very unfair judgment, as by then, Megan and Reggie had been together for almost 2 years, and I thought it would be nice to try to be friendly with them. Anyway, after that, I realized that they probably expected me to treat them like royalty, and I wasn't willing to do that. So every time I saw them after that, I tried to be civil, but I didn't talk to them much if I could avoid it. The relationship between Reggie's parents and me had already been quite tense, so that's why, in my original post, I said I wasn't surprised and should have seen it coming from the beginning. Anyway, we've always had issues with Reggie's parents. Although I've always treated Reggie well, I don't think I can say the same about Megan's in-laws. They've always been a bit cold to my daughter, and though that was in the beginning, and she really wants me to believe they've changed and become warmer toward her, I refuse to believe it. Because if they had truly accepted her, they wouldn't have forced her not to invite her own mother to the wedding. Update 1. I spoke to Megan a couple of days ago and told her I wasn't going to take down the post because I didn't think it was necessary. Post stayed up, and the comments kept coming in. I was pretty happy with what was happening because apparently I wasn't the only one who had been mistreated. Even some former employees had started commenting on how they had been treated while working at Reggie's family business. Somehow, I think I did something good by standing up to them for the kind of people they are. Although I knew Megan was really upset with me and probably wouldn't talk to me, I decided not to give in to the pressure, because she had disappointed me with her actions. It was a very difficult decision for me, because after her father's death, it was just the two of us against the world. She was the only person in my life I never thought I would lose. But here we were, not speaking to each other, and I really didn't know what to do. I had almost decided that I wasn't going to talk to her until she apologized, but I hadn't blocked her or anything because I wanted to keep that door open. Last night, Megan decided to text me. When I got the notification, I thought she was going to apologize, but she was only telling me that she and Reggie were considering postponing the wedding until all this calmed down. My post had caused quite a stir, and her family didn't think getting married now was the right move for their image. Apparently, Reggie's father was even planning to take legal action against me, although he didn't have any legal basis because this technically isn't even defamation, since it's something that actually happened. I didn't know what to say about that, so I just replied with, "Thanks for letting me know," and left it at that. She responded, asking if I really had nothing to say about the fact that she and Reggie might have to postpone the wedding, something they had been looking forward to for the past few months, just because of my post. I started getting frustrated at that point because I felt like Megan was only thinking about herself and Reggie, but not about me. I know at this point I shouldn't even be surprised, but it still hurts. Anyway, I decided to ignore that message, but she sent me another one and said she needed a response from me. After everything that had happened, the least we could do was be honest with each other, because I owed it to her since I was the reason her wedding and even her relationship were in danger. That message really upset me because even after everything that had happened, she believed I was the one who owed her something. So I wrote a message in the most sarcastic tone possible that went something like this. "I'm so sorry that you were in so much trouble because of me, since I should have known you are a spineless puppet of your fiancé and his family. Obviously, it's not your fault that you were manipulated into not inviting your own mother to the wedding, the same mother who raised and supported you on her own. Obviously, it's my fault that your fiancé and his family are terrible people who think I'm beneath them, just because I'm a hardworking person who has built a career for myself, instead of capitalizing on all the wealth my family left, which is what Reggie's parents did. Obviously, it was my fault that your grandparents were just regular people and not business tycoons. If that had been the case, I probably would have been invited to the wedding. Unfortunately for you, you ended up with an ordinary mother, and that was the root of all your problems. After that, I didn't want to hear from her again, so I muted her and decided I wasn't going to talk to her until she apologized to me in person. Even if she does, I'm not sure if I'll be able to have a normal relationship with her again, because all this is just ridiculous. Update 2. Since I muted Megan a few days ago and hadn't responded to her messages, Reggie decided to call me today. He sounded very upset, but I tried not to feel too bad for them, because, in the end, neither of them defended me or took my side. Reggie clearly chose his parents over me, so I had no reason to sympathize with that. Still, I answered the call because he'd called me about 4 times before I finally picked up, and I tried to be as civil as possible with him. He started by telling me that he and Megan were really sorry they couldn't convince his parents to let me be present at the wedding. The most they could do for their actions was apologize, but they couldn't go back in time and change it. He said it would be useless for me to keep that post up, because now the whole family was gossiping about them, and they were considering canceling the wedding altogether. Reggie told me he knew how much this wedding meant to Megan. Since she was a child, she had been crazy about weddings, and always dressed up as a bride when she played. Even until recently, she had been so excited to get married, but now she wasn't even sure if that was going to happen. The only solution to the problem would be for me to delete the post, and then maybe his parents would take the initiative to talk to me in person and try to work things out. But until I deleted the post, no one was going to step back. His father had even started talking to a lawyer and asked me to delete it just for my daughter's sake. Once again, it was very difficult for me, but I had to tell him that I wasn't going to do that. This had reached a point where deleting that post would be admitting that I was giving up. It would be like letting my daughter, him, and his parents trample all over me without consequences. And worst of all, it could seem like I was backing down, which I wasn't willing to do. I didn't care how petty or immature it seemed at this point. If his parents weren't going to apologize to me, I didn't see the point in taking that post down. Reggie got a bit agitated and told me that there had already been enough consequences because of that post, and that now it was pointless to leave it up. He said I was only keeping it out of spite and nothing more. I agreed with him. I was keeping it up because I wanted to teach his family a lesson. Even though I had already achieved that, I didn't think it would mean anything until they apologized. It was very little I was asking for, and if he couldn't even get his parents to do that, maybe they didn't love him as much as they thought. Instead of asking me to do certain things for my daughter's sake, maybe he should ask his parents to do them for him. I don't think he expected me to turn the discussion back on him, so he started fumbling with his words and eventually resorted to emotional manipulation. He told me he had always considered me one of his parental figures since he met me, and that I had recognized that he was like a son to me. Therefore, I should think about him and my daughter's happiness. I found it very ironic that he was playing all these cards without really thinking about what he was saying. If he really considered me a maternal figure and saw himself as my son, then he would have defended me when his parents said he didn't want me at the wedding. Even my daughter didn't do that, let alone him. So if I couldn't expect that from them, it was ridiculous for him to expect similar things from me. I told him that no matter what he said at this point, I wasn't going to back down, and I would make sure to get the apology I deserved. I also told him that instead of wasting time arguing with me, he should probably be talking to his parents. If this really goes to court, they'd be in much more trouble than I would. I don't have disgruntled employees seeking revenge, but they do, and they would definitely testify against his parents if I approached them. This would mean that his company would suffer even more than it already has. He tried to accuse me of blackmailing them, but I was just giving them a heads up. After that, he was basically searching for arguments, so I hung up and told him I didn't want him to contact me again unless it was to apologize. Honestly, not with those fake apologies where they just say sorry, because they expected me to take down that post and patch things up with his parents just so they could get married. Update 3. It's been 3 weeks, and I still haven't taken down the post. Since my last conversation with Reggie, neither he nor Megan has tried to contact me, and obviously their parents haven't either. Today, I noticed that Reggie and Megan posted that their wedding, which was supposed to happen in 2 weeks, unfortunately will not take place and has been postponed indefinitely. They mentioned that they are still together and will be in the near future. But due to unavoidable circumstances, the wedding had to be postponed. I don't know how people reacted to that information because the comments had been disabled on the post. To be honest, I feel a little bad for them. Even though they treated me poorly, I'm sure it was very difficult for them to make the decision to postpone the wedding. Although I'm not sure how much of that was their decision, as I'm pretty sure Reggie's father and his PR company have a lot to do with this move. They care a lot about their image and reputation and will do whatever it takes to protect it. So in all likelihood, that's a big part of why the wedding was postponed. Anyway, in the last few weeks, I've received hundreds of messages and emails from various people who have been mistreated by Reggie's parents. To my surprise, it's not just former employees, but even relatives who were excluded because they didn't fit the image of a perfect aristocratic family. For example, Reggie's father no longer speaks to his brother because he chose to step away from the corporate world to work on a farm, which he still works on now. Reggie's father considers this job a disrespect, so they haven't been in contact for several years. I didn't even know the man had a brother, and that's how they treat him. It's very strange to me that despite growing up with money, they act like that's the only thing that matters and are willing to cut ties with people who don't fit the image they're trying to cultivate. On some levels, it makes sense that they own a PR firm, because they're so incredibly superficial that appearances are all that matters to them. Personally, I'm glad they don't like the way I am because I guess I'm too authentic for them. I'm grateful to fate that they hated me enough to completely ruin our relationship. Now, I never have to speak to them again, and even if my daughter marries their son, I'll make sure to keep my distance from all of them, not just his parents. Update 4. Been several months since I posted about my daughter's future in-laws and their company, and it has taken a toll on their relationship with the kids. As I had assumed, the reason they had to postpone the wedding was that Reggie's parents thought it would be bad for their image to get married amidst so much controversy. However, after 3 weeks, they got tired of waiting and didn't want to be caught in our fight. So the two of them decided to elope and announced it online without telling anyone. This created another controversy and eventually led to Reggie's father disinheriting him. But I really don't think Reggie cares since he and Megan have decided to start their own business. They might not make as much money, but they'll be happy. I know this because about a month ago, they came to my house to apologize. They told me that they had been antagonizing the wrong person and didn't want me to feel like the villain, because I really wasn't. If anything, I was the only person who made sense, and they were very sorry for everything they put me through. They confessed that they had been manipulated and controlled by Reggie's parents. Reggie didn't want to lose the inheritance his parents would leave him, which makes sense, because I don't think I would have given that up if I were in his place. But eventually, he realized he was becoming his parents, and Megan also felt terrible about everything. They decided to try to make amends with me. They no longer cared about the inheritance. They just wanted to repair their relationship with me and live their lives their own way. They were tired of being puppets of Reggie's parents. Took me a while to forgive them, but eventually, I did. Even when her father died, I had no one but my daughter, and nowadays, I have no one but her. This time I felt the apology was sincere. They didn't expect anything from me. They didn't even expect me to forgive them. But I still did. We're trying to work on our relationship because obviously there are many fractures, but I hope we can make it work. I'm happy with how things have turned out and hope they get better in the future. Update 5. I'm making this update separately because many have been asking about my post, whether I deleted it or not, and I haven't done so. Although it doesn't have as much traction now as it did initially, partly because time has passed and it has been buried, so to speak. but also because many people have been encouraged to share their problems with that family. So other stories have emerged that are more viral than mine. Some of these stories are even harsher than mine. I mean, they're stories of workplace harassment that the family has covered up and that kind of thing. Honestly, I haven't had to delete my post because no one cares anymore when there's something more attention-grabbing. A wedding and a poor woman like me. No one cares. But that's how it is. At least the focus is no longer on me, and the family is getting a bit of the karma they deserve.